Hello and welcome. I have too many foundation slash skin tint slash coverage products for my own good. I am pretty overwhelmed by all the options I have to put on my face. I have a bunch that I really love, but then I also find this strange tugging to like try and get use out of some other ones that are in my collection. So I kind of want to pare things down a bit to clear up space, and I'm more than certain that like before the year ends there's still going to be another launch that I'm interested in and want to try out. So one, I want to make more space in my collection for new things, and two, I want to be able to focus on the things I really like and get more use out of them. It's really tough because there are so many genuinely good products. A lot of these are neck and neck, very comparable, just that like because I have multiple, I think I should pick one in like one category and just stick with it. It's tough. I like actually want to use so many of these, but I just have way too much. So here are all the foundation like products that I have in my possession right now. Oh man, oops, okay. I have a number that I've talked about on my channel but don't have in front of me for one reason or another, which I will cover as we go through. But just getting to these, let's talk about the Salt New York because this one is like super in the way. I've got the Sneaky Balm, and I actually decluttered. I had both the shades N11 and N12, and I kept N11 because this formula is just like very sheer, so I feel like having two doesn't really add that much. N12 was just a little bit too light for me, and N11 like is flexible enough to cover pretty much like all the shades that my face becomes. It's not my favorite product. It's very balmy, like lip balmy. It's super emollient. It leaves a bit of a greasy feeling behind, I would say, but because it lives in this palette with all my other Salt New York items, I like keeping it in here. It doesn't really like take up additional space mentally for me. It's just like with my other Salt New York things. One that I know for sure I'm going to keep is the Kogendo Aqua foundation. I have the shade 213, and this was basically the first foundation that helped me realize that I was olive. It's got a little bit of green. It's like probably one of my best color matches and probably one of the best like formulas out there in terms of the preferences that I love. It is lightweight, fluid, skin-like, buildable, doesn't really pick up on dry patches. It's just like pretty much everything that I would want in a foundation. It's not like particularly dewy, it's not mattifying, it's not drying. It's a 10 out of 10, except that it costs, I think, almost like $80 for this, and that is way too much. I also feel like I go through this pretty quickly. I don't know why. I just use like pretty much one pump for my face every time, but maybe because it's so expensive I notice how fast I go through it. I really love this foundation. Cost not factored in, I would be more than happy to just have this foundation as the one that I own and like the only one I use for the rest of my life. I would have zero complaints, but it's way too expensive for me to actually do that, and I also love trying new things, so here we are. Another foundation that I absolutely love and probably will always have in my collection is the MAC Studio Radiance Face and Body. The Studio Radiance I think came out this year or last year or so. I don't notice a huge difference. I think it's pretty on par with the classic formulation. It's quite dewy on me, super thin, but surprisingly buildable. It was like one of the first few foundations I really tried. Oh, it's worth mentioning that basically up until a year ago, I only had like 5 foundations basically. I used to just buy one, use it up, go through it, buy another. The MAC Face and Body was like one of my first ones I tried when I was starting to get more into beauty. So it's quite nostalgic for me for one, and it really stands out as being like the one formula that is superior in terms of never giving away any flakiness on the face. That's a huge pet peeve for me. A lot of these products are extremely good at being subtle and masking any flakiness / not highlighting it, but the MAC Face and Body does it the best. It is a bit glowy for me personally, but otherwise it's so good. Okay, oh, another definite keep. This is the CYO Long Lasting Life Proof Foundation. I got this kind of on a whim when I was passing through Walgreens one day. It was $5. I chose a shade that's not quite right for me. It's so beautiful, you guys. It's crazy that this stuff was so affordable. After this was discontinued, I went on a hunt trying to find more foundations. This is another one of those products that like I would have been fine just kind of keeping on with this one. It's very medium coverage, but like can be sheared out, can be built up. It's like a soft matte satiny finish. It lets a bit of luminosity come through, but it gives your skin a very soft velvety effect. It's not drying at all, however. And it's just so flexible. I feel like it would get along really well with a lot of skin types. It's just so practical. The packaging, the pump, the formulation, everything about it is 10 out of 10. This could fit into anyone's life, but actually it can't because it's gone. And I am using that very sparingly, but really I should just go ahead and use it up because it's gonna go bad at this rate. Another one I'm keeping is the Glossier Perfecting Skin Tint. I'm about like yay much left in the bottle. I feel pretty confident that I can use this up, so that's why I want to keep it around. I don't think that I will repurchase this. It's super sheer. Much sheerer than the MAC Face and Body, not particularly buildable in any way. I used this a lot during the pandemic to kind of just give my face a little bit of a boost, but really this is one that kind of looks like no makeup. I also really like mixing this in with other foundations. I like to mix my base products, and like the MAC Face and Body, if I mix this in with something, it makes things more fluid and it also adds a bit of glow. This again is a great one for shearing things out, but for some reason, despite it being quite glowy on its own, it doesn't make the mixture of what I have additionally glowy. So I really like it for that purpose. Here's one that I think I should definitely get rid of. It's the Hourglass Vanish Complexion Stick, and I have the shade Natural. It's not a good shade for me at all. I got it a long time ago, like well over a year ago, and I wanted a foundation. You can see how like orange it is on me. I wanted a foundation that was more matte and more coverage because I really didn't have any of those options. I'm still a little low on those options, so I liked to mix this in with other stuff and it would look really good, at least on camera. I don't really find myself, other than like wanting to look nice on camera, having any opportunity where I feel that I really want something that is as full coverage as this can offer. It's also kind of a hassle how far off this shade is for me. The Fenty Beauty Eavesdrop, this is like my token fuller, it's not full coverage, but it's got more coverage than some of the other things I have. This I would say starts out as a light coverage and is buildable to like at least a medium, maybe more. It's definitely mattifying, it's definitely blurring. I featured this on my channel upon first release and I didn't love it then. It was like winter and my skin was much more dehydrated. I thought about decluttering it actually, but I kept it around to wait until summer to try it out, and I have tried it a few times this month and have loved it every time I try it. Still gotta keep seeing how it goes for me. I can't say that this is like absolute favorite like some of these others that I'm keeping. However, it is really making a comeback. Another one that is in the category of like, oh, I was trying to find something more on the matte side, more on the full coverage side. This was super cheap, so I figured I'd try it out. I bought this online. Don't think I got the right shade. It's Nude Ivory. It comes out really pale, and then it will kind of dry and oxidize to be actually a bit dark for my winter shade. It actually is pretty close to my depth right now, despite it looking shockingly pale, but it still dries out to be a little bit too peachy for me. So not a huge fan of this, I gotta say, and it's got a pretty awful scent. Smells like paint. I think if this is something where you can find the shade that works for you after it dries down, it could be a really good, affordable staple in the collection, but this is not quite right for me. One that I definitely want to keep, the L'Oreal True Match Nude Hyaluronic Acid Tinted Serum. Oh man, I picked this up pretty recently, within the past month or two, and it is beautiful. It is a super seamless formula. It really just wants to like get right on your skin, blend itself out, sink away into nothingness. It again is one of those formulas that is hydrating, but it's not dewy. It feels really soft on the face. It lasts throughout the day. It is very, very liquidy. I must say though, I really dislike the packaging. It's such a mess. You can see my like lid is all crusty all over. Let's see. But it is just so smooth, and like it's texturally very pleasant for me to work with. I have the shade Light 23, which is a little bit dark for me, but it is very sheer. It's buildable to, I would say, like a light coverage, maybe a light medium. This is very high up there for me as far as things I have tried this year. And in contrast to that, I have the Neutrogena Sensitive Skin Healthy Serum Foundation. No, Sensitive Skin Healthy Skin Serum Foundation. I did a comparison between these two serum foundations from the drugstore recently, and the L'Oreal one wins out by a lot for me. This is not a bad product, but it just doesn't quite stand out. This one actually is reminiscent to the Nars Light Reflecting Foundation, but it just feels like a much more sheared down version of it. But they are both scentless. They're both very, very glowy, and like the glowiness lasts all day. While that can look pretty, it's a little bit, it's just like a hint too much. I feel like the glowiest I'm willing to go is the MAC Studio Radiance, and this formula just offers a lot more elegance than something like this does. This is sheer and buildable to light. I think when you try to build too much, you just end up feeling like too greasy glowy throughout the day, or at least I personally do. Oddly, I found that I could still see some like flakiness. It like picked up a bit of unsettledness in my skin, which I'm really not a fan of given how dewy it is. I feel like the dewiness should be able to mask that. It's not bad per se, but it really doesn't offer anything that I can't get in like the things that I love. The L'Oreal Age Perfect 4-in-1 Tinted Balm I really love, and I'm kind of torn between. I don't know how to like, for some reason it reminds me a lot of the L'Oreal True Match, which I know they're like completely different formats, where this is a serum and this is a balm, but this balm is like very fluffy and liquidy and gel-like, maybe even serum-like as well. It does this thing again where it just melts into the skin and really wants to blend itself out in a way. And I tend to apply both of these with my fingers, and just like the way they spread into my fingers and over my face feels really similar. I think that between the two, I love the True Match Nude more, so I feel like I shouldn't keep this one. I'm not super sure. I think I'll keep this around for a little while and see how much I reach for it. I don't know. It falls into that category of it's like similar to something else, so I don't want to keep both, but at the same time, like, this one's a balm, so that obviously makes a difference. Maybe I'll just leave it in the keep. Oh gosh. Here's a balm I do want to declutter though. This is the Decemyrix Yummy Skin Blurring Balm Powder. It can function as a primer, a coverage product, and a powder, and I just don't love it more than using any of those products like individually. The biggest problem is that I find it to be quite drying on me. I can't apply more than a very, very sheer layer, and though it can look pretty in a sheared out layer, it can last really nicely through the day and blur my skin. Basically, the first half hour of wearing this, my skin feels a little tight, a little dry, and then from like 1 hour to until my oils start to break down this product, my face like can feel a little dry at certain moments, and I really have to like prep my skin for this. I don't know, I just don't feel like it's worth the hassle, and I know that I will reach for this 0% of the time, basically all winter. So there's that. And then finally I have these 3 products which I find very, very similar, which makes me not want to keep all of them. They are all tinted moisturizers. They have a very like gel like juicy thick texture to them. I pumped some out so you can see, and then maybe at first glance it kind of just looks like foundation, but I feel like they are all quite like gel like. They have a decent amount of like thickness and body to them. As opposed to some of the other things in this pile that are much more fluid, like the MAC Face and Body or the L'Oreal True Match. Those are much, much more liquidy. These have more of like a moisturizer feel to them. I know for sure I'm gonna get rid of the Laura Mercier one. For some reason, this one is like thinner and it has less coverage, and this is really, really good at looking extremely skin-like, extremely seamless, not picking up dry patches, looking almost imperceivable. And for some reason that seems like all things that I would love, but it just doesn't do enough to like even things out and blur things together. I have tried this multiple times, and like every day that I do, I just don't really like how my skin looks. It could be that it's because the color is a little off for me. I think that a lot of these other products that I love, just though they can be sheer and not provide that much coverage, they do things like help to blur things together, help to even things out a lot, and this just kind of like sinks away. And also, if I use this with a beauty blender, it like really eats up a lot of product. Between these two, I've done a comparison between these, and I like both a lot. These two I find very, very comparable in terms of like the coverage they give, the wear time, the application process. They're both like quite hydrating, but not too dewy. Light coverage that's buildable to medium. Very, very flattering on the skin. I think I am going to keep the Rare Beauty one because it's a bit of a better shade match for me, and I don't know, I also did a video about this one and it did pretty well, so I guess I feel pretty positively about this product, aside from the fact that it's just like good and I stand by it. The Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator, they're both so good, but they're both similar enough that I don't need both. I think when I come to repurchase, if I do ever run out of this, I would opt to get the Tinted Hydrator because it's more affordable. So here are all the things that I am getting rid of. I think this is a good selection. Most of these don't bring me like a huge amount of joy to put on my face, and I feel like the opportunity cost of using one of these versus something I like love a lot more is kind of a shame for that day. Also have passed along my Misha Perfect Cover BB cream. I lent it out to someone to try, but I think I'm just gonna let them keep it because looking at how many face products I'm keeping, I still feel like it's too many. So I'm just gonna add that to the decluttered pile, technically. And then I also have a couple of foundations on my channel that I've featured but have already since decluttered, and I think they're probably worth mentioning here. The Tower 28 Sunny Days Tinted Sunscreen. I featured this on my channel a little while ago when it first launched, and I still really like that formulation. This is an example of something that, you know, it's good, but there's a lot of similar things and it it's hard to compete in this category. So I had the shade 10 Larchmont, which was definitely too light for me even when I was in my winter shade. So that was not great. That was user mistake on my part. It had a very nice no scent, like nice thick moisturizer. Lots of like, it's not liquidy at all. It has a lot of hydration to the formula. It has a good amount of coverage. I would say it's like light medium buildable to like highly medium coverage. But in any case, I found the formula to be very, very similar to my Rare Beauty Positive Light Tinted Moisturizer. They both have that like luxurious juicy gel-like moisturizer feel to them. They both are light to medium-ish. I think the Tower 28 has a bit more coverage, but just the way that they felt in terms of texture, application, finish and wear time on the face, and their like purported benefits, because the Positive Light Tinted Moisturizer is also SPF 20. I just found them really, really similar, and I ended up reaching for the Rare Beauty one all the time because this one is actually in my shade, whereas the Tower 28 is just too light and I would have to mix and finish with things. So I ended up passing that one along, but it's still a very, very good formulation. I would highly recommend it, especially if you think you're into tinted moisturizers and one, you either have really sensitive skin. That formulation is supposedly really well formulated to like be tolerable to most skin types, or if you are someone who likes more of a solid medium coverage. A lot of what I have here I think is like sheer / light to buildable to medium, whereas that one felt like solid light to medium off the bat. Let's talk about the Nars Light Reflecting Foundation. I had the shade Deauville. This is a product that I feel like was really hyped up but didn't actually have much weight to it. It felt like for a week and a half, it was everywhere on YouTube and people were saying this is their favorite formulation. It was so skin-like, it sat just great. I think I waited a few weeks after it launched to buy it, and I was like, okay, fine, this sounds really, really up my alley. I want to try it out. And it was $50, and it was very much just okay. Very, very luminous, solid medium coverage, but I found that it could still, like, I could notice patches of flakiness on my face. It was definitely too luminous for my preferences. It looked really, really pretty and glowy throughout the day if that is your preference. It just like didn't hold up as being the best, and now I feel like I don't really hear anyone talking about it. No one still mentions it as their favorite, myself included. I thought it was kind of just okay. It was good, but given the price point, I think it should have been much better, and it just didn't hold up. And speaking of the Kosas Revealer Foundation, I actually also decluttered this one. This one I highly prefer over the Nars Light Reflecting if you want a very like medium buildable coverage, luminous foundation. I felt that that one had a nice shade range. The shade I had, 160, worked really well for me. It was more comfortable throughout the day for me in that it was glowy from the get-go, but never felt like my oils mixed in to make it too shiny or feel too greasy at any point. So it wore really beautifully throughout the day. I found it to be like a nice buildable, and the thing that kind of won it out over the Nars for me was I felt it to be very seamless on my face, rarely picked up any texture, any patchiness, any dry flakes. So that is like a very, very important indicator of quality to me. So for all those reasons, I like the Kosas Revealer one much better. And then for some reason, just texturally, I found it like very elegant to put on my face. I decluttered it because Kosas is a clean brand. They don't really have preservatives. There's like this scent in all this the Kosas products that is very strong and feels like a constant reminder to me of like this could spoil at any moment. So I ended up passing it on to someone who barely has any foundation. I think if that was like the only foundation I had and I was sure that I could use it up before it would go bad, I would really much enjoy it. I really like that foundation. But between all the options I have to put on my face, I just wasn't using it enough, and I definitely felt like this is a good product. I'm not going to use it up before it spoils, and I think that's kind of a shame. Other things in my collection that are not clean beauty, I feel much more confident just like leaving there and knowing that, like, you know, I have like probably at least 2 years to make my way through this bottle. But I definitely don't feel that way about like the Kosas products, especially the ones that have that sort of scent. It's a beautiful, luminous, medium coverage formula. Oh, one other one that I decluttered the Purito Cica Clearing CC Cream, because I did a comparison video between that one and the Misha Perfect Cover BB Cream, and they're very, very similar. I happen to like the Misha one a little bit more. It's lighter coverage, it's a little bit more lightweight, which is, I think, like, you know, that's my preference. Very good, very similar in terms of both having that grayish tone, so I kept the Misha one instead. Okay, so here are all the foundations that I am keeping in the end, and I am confident that all of these have pretty distinct differences in terms of either price point, texture upon application, finishes. So I feel pretty like justified in what I'm keeping. I will say though that the Salt New York I'm kind of just keeping because it fits conveniently in this bad boy. The Glossier one I'm keeping, even though it's like not a standout product to me, because I feel like I'm gonna use it up pretty soon and like it won't be too hard to use up. The L'Oreal, if I lost it or something, I wouldn't get too hung up, but I do enjoy it, and again, I feel like it's justifiably different enough from the things I have. And then amongst these 6 here, these are kind of my favorites right now. I think that in each of their categories, they are the best amongst the things that I've tried. If I lost or any of these were discontinued like this one is, I would be quite sad and want to find something to fill up the like gap that they left behind when I finish using it up. These are all, while they are the best that I've tried so far in their own like category of texture slash finish, I'm definitely open still to trying more and see how things compare. But like amongst everything that I own, these 6 really, really stand out as like things that I want to keep on hand the days in which I want a finish that like this can provide, or this one, or any of these. The days where I like crave that sort of finish slash application are constant enough that these are all like important for me to have around, if that makes sense. I feel okay. I don't know. This is still way too much foundation for me to ever use up on my face, and the unfortunate thing is I know that I'm gonna get suckered into buying more exciting new launches. There's still like a backlog of products that I want to try, but hopefully I'll have some time to kind of give attention to these, and then as I introduce new products, I'll have like a really solid baseline amongst these products here to compare against something that I'd really think is like good quality. And you know, if I'm lucky enough to find something that like beats one of these out, that'll be exciting, and you will find out on my channel. Thanks for making it all the way through.